Hey and welcome, I'm Hammeh, and in this video we're going to have a quick jump into the story behind Overwatch's Soldier 76 and how Jack Morrison, or Soldier 76, has existed in some form or another as a character for almost 20 years. He's already featured in a comic and a whole bunch more. This has a little bit of a history of people at Blizzard, Blizzard as a company, and also other games as well, but also focused around Soldier 76's origins. So, do let me know what you think in the comments after you've finished. Now, as Overwatch has become awesomely big, awesomely fast, as a result, a bunch of people, perhaps including yourself, may have not played other Blizzard games before, and if this is your first Blizzard game, do let me know in the comments. Do try out the others if you have the opportunity, like STARCRAFT, Warcraft, and Diablo. They have amazing worlds, stories, and universes. If you like Overwatch story, you might well like those too. To discover the hidden story behind Soldier 76, you have to start with his creator, Chris Metzen. Now, nothing I could write or say could do this man's work full justice, but as a very inadequate summary, he's been a heartbeat and soul behind the stories and fictional universes of Blizzard for decades, StarCraft, Warcraft, and Diablo in some games or another. Starting his career as an art worker and animator on one of Blizzard's first titles they worked on, Justice League Task Force for the SNES of all things, Mr. Metzen would go on to become the SVP of Story and Franchise Development at Blizzard, giving countless enthusiastic unveilings of games, BlizzCon addresses that will go down in the ages if you've watched BlizzCons for the past few years, and even the announcement of Overwatch itself most recently, back in November 2014. He's taken some well-deserved retirement as of late last year, and so much so is he respected at Blizzard that he has his own statue that's been commissioned and made. Here's a picture of it. You may recognise that little gorilla he's standing next to. He's also voiced various Blizzard characters, including the famous StarCraft Marine, Thrall, or Orc Jesus as Warcraft fans like to call him, and outside of the madness of all that in the late 90s and early 2000s, Mr. Metzen was working on a few of his own things as well, as were other Blizzard team members. Originally designed as a personal art showcase for Blizzard artists and their works, Sons of the Storm brought together a bunch of Blizzard artists with both their personal work and, in time, franchise work as well. It's a cool site, the brainchild of Samwise Didier. He was the first artist featured before Mr. Metzen became the second in January 2004. As for Samwise, he's still at Blizzard today. Warcraft fans will certainly recognise his name. Here's a cool thing he did recently for the launch of the Heroes of the Storm hero, Samuro, the Blade Master. You will recognise a bunch of Samwise's art if you played other Blizzard games, and if not, you should totally go check it out on the Sons of the Storm website. I'll link that in the description below. So, how did the Sons of the Storm and Mr. Metzen fit into the story of Soldier 76? Well, first up, do you recognise this guy? It's someone us Overwatch fans know and love, albeit looking a little bit different and in his early days. In what appears to have been 1998, if I read the date on this properly, we can see what's definitely Soldier 76 or a version of him, of course in a different life and universe. Now cast your memories back, if you can recall that far, showing my dad 76 age myself now, to 2001, and of course the tragedy of September 11th of that year. I'm not going to dwell on it more than that, but 9/11 will probably be seen in history by many as the start of a phase of terrorist activity, some kinds of political and global uncertainty, and the war on terror that's permeated the last 15 years or so. In 2003 to 2004, not long afterwards, the Iraq War was still a thing in people's minds as well. Now, what's the significance of me bringing all of this up? The timing of it and the kind of setting of all of these events seems very related to Soldier 76's original story, or the comic or short story that Chris Metzen wrote. To see why, here's the world flavour from the Sons of the Storm website that Mr. Metzen wrote for Soldier 76 at the time. The words are his, please do check it all out on the website, it's linked below in the description. It is the year 2010. The American dream has become a nightmare. A dramatic rise in terrorist attacks executed on US soil erodes national confidence in the federal government's ability to maintain order and security throughout the United States. Extremist militant groups, both foreign and domestic, strike at US holdings with seeming impunity. The federal government's inability to directly counter these threats begins to chip away at the cornerstones of national unity. The seditious debate over how to respond forcefully to the rising crisis begins to fracture the tentative fraternity between the federal and state governments in the US. Increasingly sensationalist blocks of the media fan the flames of public paranoia and discontent. Violence reaches a boiling point on both coasts as various ethnic and special interest groups are blamed for society's rapid disintegration. The tenuous public conscience finally snaps as race riots, violent anti-federal demonstrations and outright urban warfare erupt throughout the nation's major population centres. Local governments, unable to stem the tide of the growing anarchy, turn to the federal government for a final solution, Martial law is instated across the land as federal armed forces move in and quickly take control of 13 eastern states. The massive police action quickly spirals out of control as numerous guerrilla militias rise up to spread terror and destruction up and down the East Coast. Outraged by this unprecedented federal action and driven to circumvent similar events in their own territories, a number of central and western states declare their intentions to secede from the Union. In a final bid to keep the nation from fracturing any further, the federal government sends its troops into the heartland of America to restore order at any cost. The Second American Civil War has begun. This then was the world that Soldier 76 was written to fit into, and certainly at the time that this was written in 2004, and indeed when a comic was released that I'll talk about in a bit, this would have resonated, I think, with people reading it. Indeed, parts of that alternate future that Metzen was visualising in 2004, although dark, still hold true today. Fake news? Sensationalist media block, anyone? Of course, it's not quite the hopeful vision of the future worth fighting for perhaps, that is now seen in Overwatch, but Metzen went on further in his article to talk about the background of 76's character back then. He is an old super soldier. There was a whole series of them, although the term super soldier will likely never be used. Probably due to giant mouse related copyrights. In this case, note this will likely have nothing to do with Overwatch whatsoever. These guys were designed to have special microchips implanted in their brain stems that regulate their autonomic systems, apparently giving them sporadic boosts of speed, endurance, aggression and strength. Indeed, we see similar such concepts and wording used in terms of the Soldier Enhancement Program in Overwatch. However, remember that Soldier 76 says to Ana in pre-game interactions that all that stuff pumped into him must have been good for something. That doesn't sound like a microchip to me, so there's probably differences there of course. In the short story world of a few years ago, 76 was left behind on a botched assassination mission over 30 years ago in his own history. Wounded and alone, he wandered the seedy back alleys of South America as an amnesiac ever since, and the government presumed him dead all these years. While he was away, America devolved into a war zone, the scene of which I just described. The nation, for a number of reasons, rampant domestic terrorism being a big one, lost all sense of itself as the Second American Civil War erupted between the federal-controlled East and a loose conflagration of Western states. As fate would have it, 76 found his way home to a very different America than the one that he knew before. Still suffering from amnesia, he must attempt to come to terms with his shadowed past in order to choose the right side to fight for. Now, it sounds as though that this was possibly all part of a short story called Soldier 76 The Vigil. Metzen teamed up with artist Greg Scott, who had worked on the Gotham Central series from DC amongst others, to put out this story in Digital Webbing Presents issue 16, and this was way back in July 2004. Now, at the time of the article on Sons of the Storm's website's writing in 2004, Metzen was also apparently working more on Soldier 76 with Brazilian artist Max Velati. Now, I wonder whatever happened to that. Wouldn't it be awesome to see it in future? There we go, bit of a different video for you today. I hope you enjoyed this little look into Soldier 76's alternate history, and indeed a chunk of the history of Blizzard via Mr. Metzen's experience as well. I do love all Blizzard games, and if Overwatch is your first and you like story, heroes, villains and awesome lore and characters, do give the other Blizzard games a go. And keep an eye out for the odd StarCraft, Warcraft and other lore, interaction and voice line video coming soon on this channel. Overwatch will always be my focus here, but if you like Overwatch's universe and story, you should totally try Blizzard's other stories, high fantasy, science fiction and so much more. I'm happy to try and guide your way. There's actually probably no better way to get into another of Blizzard's classic universes in the coming months than StarCraft Remastered, just announced over the last few days. Released in 1998, StarCraft was a space-age western fairy tale and much more all rolled into one. If you've ever watched Firefly, enjoyed Westworld recently, played Heroes of the Storm or like the odd bit of science fiction, then you should definitely check it out for the story if nothing else. It has iconic heroes, villains and everything in between. Jim Raynor, Sarah Kerrigan, before and after she became the Queen of Blades, Zeratul, Artanis, Tassadar, Nova, and of course the monstrous Zerg, who I didn't want to play the single-player campaign for initially back in 1998, as they, confession, creeped me out a bit at the time. I was clearly made of stern stuff back then, you can tell. StarCraft was also heavily a Chris Metzen universe as well. It has comics, both made for animated recently and a few others, and a whole awesome lore and story. So expect me to explore that too in future, if you guys are interested. Once I've finished playing Mass Effect Andromeda, of course, which I'm kind of enjoying, as I love the story of the Mass Effect games too. No jumping on the hate train here. Do let me know what other games you're playing right now, and maybe you'd like to hear more about the story around in the comments below as well. Thank you for tuning in. If you like this vid, do let me know your thoughts and theories with a comment. Perhaps drop a like or subscribe, it really helps me out. You can see more episodes in this series, my hero lore, interactions and voice lines, and anything to do with Overwatch's story, as well as some news and theory on the channel. Playlists are here. If you like my videos and would like to learn more about supporting them, then check out my Patreon linked here. Cheers for tuning in. I'm Hammeh. Take it easy.